Throughout history, the machinery of government has relied on individuals dedicated to public administration and service. We know them today as civil servants. But where did this term originate? How did it evolve to represent those who serve the state in civilian roles?
The civil servants are government workers.
A civil servant is anyone who is doing a civil service. So maybe in a teacher, I am a civil servant.
Okay, you're a civil servant.
Yes.
But again, there are people who are just failing to accept the term, especially the last part, servant. I know there's a combination of two, civil and servant, but the part of being called a servant when you're a professional, highly trained, how comfortable are you with that?
I am not.
You're not comfortable?
I'm not comfortable.
What
the
makes
servant
you?
Part, The servant part to start the civil.
So
I don't like the servant part.
If you're not comfortable, then what do you understand? Who is supposed to be a servant?
A servant is someone who has a master. Someone who is looking to someone to be a master. So
Okay.
maybe in a teacher, I don't think I should have a master I should look to. Because maybe in a teacher, I'm serving the service of the government. Therefore, who's supposed to be my master?
Don't you have a master?
I have in my case, I have.
Who is that one?
The government.
Then you qualify.
To be a civil servant. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
According to my own understanding, a civil servant is a person working a white-collar job.
White-collar job?
Yes.
Olosha kuli civil servant. Ilishiwi kakutwala mu kibe balosha mu kutiira muntu oyo abombera obuteeko okyakwififya walatiira muntu oyo obeeta okutiira n'ingulufu ya buteeko nga mwanfa kwishiwe lya ngulufu balalanda ku muntu oyo balalosha kumusha ushikwete ensamu wishingi iyo bantu fye nishimu bonfi ilishi witali mfika wino yo deshi wili sumeli akutira mwabomfisha kumuntu yo mulemu nuwachi ndamashimu chindi nga twalosha kuli bakafundisha ekufuma amwazi abantu ababa bakama bumi abantu bambo kwitwange ngufi ekintu kisumayo ishinaline eli abifyana sana bantu eli alenga n'emikalire yabo tayiriwe mumone fyenga mwalienda munchende shingi abantu ofo babasunga abantu ofo bayisunga abene nefyo bamoneka ku bantu abena balamanova nabo nebo babombana bene ali takibabwino omulandu w'eshinali kuti natemwasane ekyakutira mwachinjishe kweshinala ngulaba bele eshina bachinjishe kweshina bafumyapo ekyo ekyangulufi babika punangula nishimu chindi
Kwaisa kulimbi.
A civil servant is a worker who is employed by the government, and who is supposed to serve the community. He has to do everything that is instructed by the government.
Okay, you are a civil servant, right?
Yes.
For how long have you been in civil service?
10 years.
For 10 years. Are you just comfortable? How comfortable are you with the term civil servant, especially the part servant?
The word or the name servant is actually bad, according to my perspective. Attaching that servant name to civil service, it makes a civil servant to be a laborer or a slave. Meaning you can even be exploited by your master. But if they can substitute the word servant with the government worker, that would be appropriate, because you will be given that respect regardless of the position. Now the fact that you are a servant, you have no that authority to control your masters, even if they are wrong.
How do you describe the status of the majority of the civil servants, especially in our country, Zambia?
according to the way things are economically, civil servants are suffering because they are not paid according to the work or the service they provide to the nation or to the service. You see, which is why people or workers in the public service, they appear to be bosses of the civil servants.
Okay.
Yes. So a civil servant is broke, is stranded because the amount that they get as salaries or the wages, you cannot even compare to people who are in public service or parastatal companies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katita. We get your point. Thank you so much.
Servant, if you never never mbera kuri ni never ni civil servant kai ndi amufulanga but then ne mwine ngani pa mulungu mfula shi ni civil servant.
So civil servant muntu onso ufola
ubo mbale fola
na to trati bana nishina
ne Thomas Kachusha
kuti mpera kwa example ya civil servant umbio mwaishi bapo
umbio na shopo civil servant na umbi ule komba mu government civil servant wapala teacher ama doctor filia
na to tela mkwai. Thank you.
A civil servant is a government worker who is employed to deliver services on behalf of the government.
Okay.
Okay. So as a civil servant, you are supposed to work. You are supposed to work for the government, deliver quality services on behalf of the government.
Okay.
Yes. So as a servant is a person who is employed to perform certain duties. So in this case, a civil servant is a worker employed by the state to deliver services.
Suppose we removed civil, then it just remained servant. Who is a servant? Just a servant.
A servant is a worker employed by someone. At the end of the day, that person gets something as a salary.
How do you describe the status of a servant?
The status of a servant is more like a slave. Dances to the tune of the masters.
Okay.
Yes, that's what it is.
Now, as a professional, highly trained, are you comfortable to be called a civil servant?
A civil servant, yes, because I understand the work ethics of my duties. I'm very comfortable.
Okay.
Maybe if you want me to delve into details, I will say we are not very comfortable owing to the certain situations like enumerations.
Okay.
We are entangled with the salary that we get, and then that's where we're almost enslaved.
Okay.
Owing to the number of hours we are dictated to say we are supposed to work for these particular hours, you know. By doing that, it makes us to be dormant to perform other duties other than the job that we are involved in.
I see. You are attached to only one thing.
One. So
Suppose
in this context, particularly those of us who are in the teaching profession, we are working to make sure that we achieve the targets that are set by our employer.
Okay.
And as we do that, we even go beyond the time that we are supposed to do our other issues, our side businesses, which makes us now to be more entangled with the debts.
If you are given chance, maybe, or rights to play around with the term civil servant, I don't know, would you love to change it or just maintaining it because of the...
Civil servant. I think the term itself is okay.
It's just okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Just okay.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Mwari.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Kulingana n'ofunayishwa bali civil servant. Civil servant muntu ubomba mu buteeko lero tali politician.
Ute politician?
Ushiri politician but abomba mu buteeko muntu ya buteeko. Fya para ba teacher ba nesi na bambi.
Civil servant is actually the name that is given to the people who are acted serving the community, the society. And the reason why these people are called civil servants is because they are actually being deployed by the government and being paid by the government.
Okay.
And the reason why they are called to be civil servants.
You are a civil servant too?
Of course.
Looking at the term, are you comfortable with the same term being called civil servant, or how do you feel about it?
For me, it's just okay to be called a civil servant because, I cannot run away from the truth to be called a civil servant because I'm serving the people, and it's the same government which deployed me. It's the same government which is actually paying me. By the end of it, that's the reason why I am actually being called to be a civil servant. When you actually compare it to the politicians in the other way around, these people, they are not called civil servants because they are not being deployed by the government itself, but we do just vote for them.
Okay.
That's the reason why they are not being called civil servants.
There are people who are just not comfortable with the term servant. Who is a servant?
A servant is actually someone who is working in order for him or her to get something at the end of it. That is a person who is called to be a servant. When you're working for someone or for a company or for anything else, you can be called a servant because you are working and then at the end of it you have to get something. That's the reason why you are called to be a servant.
Then the person you're working for is a master, is it?
Of course. The master, because it's the same person who is paying you.
Who is paying you?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'm most welcome.
So first of all, I will start defining who a civil servant is. One, the word is civil is from the word an ordinary person. Now, in academic terms, or say we qualify it to what will be a profession. So a civil servant is a person who's working for the particular institution. So in this case, we say government. So any worker who is working for the government, we call him as a civil servant.
A civil servant?
Yes.
I've seen some workers, government workers, who are just not comfortable with the term, especially the last part, servant. Civil servant. Now the last part, servant.
It actually depends on how you understand it. A servant simply means just a person who is working on behalf of the people.
Okay.
So meaning there are certain policies that are made from above. So this servant meaning is a person who is there to translate into a lesser local language so that people can understand according to to their level. So by virtue of you doing that, then you are being a servant. So this is what I understand by a servant. It's all about servitude.
What's the difference between a slave and a servant? Is there a difference?
Yes, there is a very, very big distinction, or there is a very big difference. The difference that is there, a servant is a person who at the end of a month should expect something, which we call as a salary. But a slave does not expect anything, which we call as a salary or wage. A slave is a slave, okay? It's just being used by by his master.
Just follows the commands of his master.
And there is a word operation. That's why that's a very big distinction which is there. A servant at the end of it all, I think I don't even expect that their operation there. They work within policies implemented from the above, which we might call it as the government. But a servant anytime can be called upon.
How do you describe the status of a servant? Is there any servant who is successful in life?
Yeah, there are a lot of servants who are successful in life. We say there are teachers now who are venturing into business. That's being successful. There are also a lot of doctors who have actually opened their I would say maybe drugstores that are doing all sorts of say theater, maybe at the private institution. So you're talking about what they do besides their service? Besides their service, yes. So it's the service that makes them to be successful too. And it's the work that they do that actually translate into what they want to become in future. So that's what I can actually say about that.
But somehow I meant someone who is successful just from his services as a civil servant.
As a civil servant.
Not besides civil service.
Civil service, yes. I would say some teachers, okay?
Okay.
Even nurses, doctors, others are successful. What do I mean by successful? Okay, the money that you get or the money that you earn at the end of the day, some people are building mansions.
Okay.
Some people are doing all sorts of business. That's being successful, yes.
So it's about how you plan.
Yes, about how you plan.
Okay.
About the income that you get. That's what will make you what? Successful.
Okay, following the term, are you saying it's just a good term for such people, highly qualified people?
Yeah, depending on how you actually how you understand it and how you actually get it and how you feel about it. It's a good term.
Okay.
Because also biblically that's the way that was being used, okay, to actually connote or to imply, to say you are at a realm of the people that you are saving. Then no wonder they get the word service, because you are I would say you are an object, or you are the instrument of making what ends meet with these people. That's what I
you've just talked about the Bible, which has reminded me of Jesus when he was, presenting the Lord's Supper time. Huh?
Yes, yes.
These disciples expected, they looked forward to a servant who was going to come and wash their feet. Surprisingly, it was the master, Jesus, who came and washed their feet, and they were surprised. Exactly. Some wanted even to boycott, like the Peters.
Yes,
say,
yes.
No, you can't wash, you can't wash.
It's the reason why Peter wanted to boycott, because he did not understand the concept, service or a servant. Who is a servant?
So according to Peter, a servant, someone who has a very low status in society.
Low status in society, that's what he understood. But a servant, if anything, should be the master of all. Because servanthood is all about I'll say I'll bring in the aspect of humility. You follow what the master is doing. Then the master in return will appreciate you.
It's about service.
Yes, about service, yes.
Thank you so very much.
The term civil servant first emerged in the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe, particularly in England, derived from the Latin words civilis, meaning citizen, and serviens, meaning one who serves. The term originally referred to individuals employed by the state to perform administrative functions in a civilian capacity. This was in contrast to military servants, who were also in employ of the state but served in armed forces. The term gained prominence during the 18th century, particularly through the British East Indian Company. The company employed many British citizens to administer its vast territories in India and elsewhere, referring to them as civil servants to distinguish them from military officers. Over time, this terminology spread and became associated with government officials in a broader context. By the 19th century, the term civil servant was widely adopted across Europe and North America as governments expanded, modernized, and needed a professional class of administrators. The British Northcote Trevelyan Report of 1854 advocated for a merit-based system of hiring civil servants, reinforcing the idea that those positions should be filled by qualified individuals, irrespective of social background. Today, the term civil servant encompasses a wide range of roles, from high-ranking government officials to local community health workers. What remains consistent is the commitment to serving the public interest, maintaining the functions of government, and upholding the principles of impartiality and professionalism. The term civil servant has traveled across time and continents, evolving to represent those who dedicate their career to public service. It is a testimony to the enduring importance of governance and the essential role of individuals who work, often behind the scenes, to keep societies functioning and flourishing.